is up, Met fans? Welcome back. Talkin Mets with Rob. How's everybody doing? Before I get started talking about the potential trades the Mets can make post-lockout, don't forget, guys, if you enjoyed this video, hit on that like button. If you enjoy my content, want to see more, want to get notified when I post my videos and when I go live, you guys know what to do. Hit on that subscribe button, everybody. All right, guys. All right, Met fans. So, what will it take for the New York Mets to make big-time blockbuster trades involving these players right here? Now, I'm not saying they're going to make all of them, but I do have a feeling that there's going to be one big trade and one more big signing for the New York Mets post-lockout. And I truly believe that the Mets have what it takes to make a blockbuster trade involving these type of players. We've heard rumors about, over the last couple of days, about Jeff Mcneil potentially being in a trade, and how many teams asked about Jeff Mcneil in a trade. And obviously you got to put some prospects in there when it involves these type of players on the A's and the Reds. Potentially, there could be a big deal with the Mets and the Reds. Potentially, there could be a big deal between the Mets and the Oakland A's. And there's one thing that I know for sure that can be said right here in this video. Billy Beane of the Oakland A's loves cheap players and loves prospects. The guys that you see here regarding the Oakland A's, Matt Chapman, Sean Manaya, Chris Bassett, and Frankie Montez. All those guys are all going to cost the A's more money in arbitration and more money in free agency. Billy Beane and the Oakland A's are known for getting rid of these players before they make big-time money and becoming more arbitration eligible when their salaries will increase in arbitration. It's very simple, guys. The New York Mets can make a big-time deal, and I'm going to give you trade proposals for each one of these players that involves these players and who will go back in what type of deal. So, without any further ado, guys, these are the proposals that I'm going to come up with, and I also am going to give you the stats and the contracts of each one of these players, so you can get a deep dive into each one of these players and why these deals and these trade proposals are warranted. Alright, guys, so we're going to start right here with the first trade with regards to the New York Mets and the Cincinnati Reds, guys. So what would the Mets have to give up to get a guy like Luis Castillo and one of their better relievers in Luis Cessa? We're going to look at it right here, guys. So the Mets would have to give up Jeff Mcneil and their number 3 prospect, Ronnie Mauricio. You would say, all right, why would the Reds only want to take on that much? Well, considering that the Reds are trying to break up some payroll and get rid of some payroll, Jeff Mcneil is a perfect opportunity, because Jeff Mcneil only makes about $2.5 million and still has 3 years of team control. That's one way right there. When it comes to Ronnie Mauricio, he's a prospect. So whenever the Reds decide to bring him up, if it's this year in 2022 or 2023, they are going to have a couple of years control depending on the CBA agreement. So they already saved money in this trade. They get a major league player in Jeff Mcneil. They get a top 5 prospect in the Mets system in Ronnie Mauricio. And the Mets will get back Luis Castillo and Luis Cessa. Obviously, it would be a big-time trade for the New York Mets. Luis Castillo, top of the rotation starter. Obviously, he would be behind DeGrom and Scherzer. But the best thing about Luis Castillo is this right here, guys. If Scherzer happens to go down, if DeGrom has to go down, you know Luis Castillo can step right into that big-time role and be that number 1 and number 2 in the Mets rotation. If everybody stays healthy, you got a big-time number 3 nobody wants to face in the divisional round, in the National League Championship round, or even the World Series. There's no doubt about that. It would be a dominant looking rotation that nobody would want to mess with when it comes to Scherzer, DeGrom, and Luis Castillo. So that is the trade I propose. Jeff McNeil and Ronnie Mauricio for Luis Castillo and Luis Cessa. And when we look at this trade, Met fans, we want to look at the contracts of the two players that would be going to the Mets, and why would it make sense for the Reds to trade them and why the Mets to get them. Both of these guys, in Luis Castillo and Luis Cessa, has 2 years left on their contract. 2022, $7.5 million goes to Luis Castillo and $1.5 million goes to Luis Cessa. Both of them are arbitration eligible for 1 more year, and that gives the Mets 2 years of control of both of them. And also, when you look at Luis Castillo's stats, he had a 3.98 ERA, 8-16 overall wins and losses, 192 strikeouts, with a whip of 1.36. Luis Castillo had a tough first half in regards to what he would usually show on the back of his baseball card. But in the second half, he was the dominant pitcher that we all know and see. He got way better and got his ERA under 4 for that really good second half. He would be 29 years old in the 2022 season. Right in the prime of his career, the Mets would get him. And when you look at Luis Cessa, he was excellent. 2.51 ERA. This is overall with the Reds and the Yankees. 5-2 wins-loss record, 2.1 WAR in 53 games. He is one of the better relievers in the game. And obviously, with the loss of Loop and possibly Familia, Luis Cessa would be a big-time arm in that Mets bullpen with May, with Diaz, among others. So that is the trade that I propose. Jeff McNeil and Ronnie Mauricio from the Mets going to the Reds for Luis Castillo and Luis Cessa. That is your first trade proposal that I propose for the Reds and the Mets. That is trade proposal number 1, guys. When it comes to the Oakland A's and the New York Mets and what type of trade proposals I will propose for these two teams, there is multiple players on the A's that can come in a deal, in a package deal with Matt Chapman going to the New York Mets. And obviously there would be different players going back from the Mets to the Oakland A's based on the pitcher that will come along with Matt Chapman. And when it comes to the pitcher, we're going to look at 3 of the top starters of the Oakland A's. Frankie Montez, Chris Bassett, and Sean Manaya. All would come back in different trades with Matt Chapman. So it would solidify the third base spot for the New York Mets and the third spot in the Mets rotation if they make one of these 3 package deals. So the first trade proposal that I propose between the Mets and the Oakland A's would be this. The Mets would get Matt Chapman and Frankie Montez for Jeff McNeil, Ronnie Mauricio, the number 3 prospect of the Mets, and Robert Dominguez, the number 10th ranked prospect in the Mets system, going to the Oakland A's. And you're going to say, wow, Rob, that is probably a lot when it comes to giving up for Matt Chapman and Frankie Montez, but you have to look at it this way. Billy Beane is going to want 2 top 10 prospects for Matt Chapman and Frankie Montez just alone like that, and then getting a major league player, a major league everyday player in Jeff McNeil, who still has 3 years of control that can be up in this major league team right away, and Ronnie Mauricio that he can pick and choose, can be up in 2022 or 2023, and Robert Dominguez is projected to be in 2024. They got a big time right-handed arm. They got a top prospect who is projected to be a very good to great shortstop, and even with offensively with the bat, and a guy that everybody thinks in Jeff McNeil who can still potentially hit 300, and in that cavernous field in Oakland, it's a doubles machine for Jeff McNeil. Can easily hit 300 over there, no problem. That is the trade proposal that I think that can work out for both teams. Jeff McNeil, Ronnie Mauricio, and Robert Dominguez going to the A's for Matt Chapman and Frankie Montez. That is a big blockbuster deal that I can see both teams can agree upon and would be fair for both teams with the players involved. And when it comes to this trade, Met fans, you want to look at Frankie Montez contract and stats for 2021 as long with Matt Chapman's contract and stats. In 2021, a 13-9 record for Frankie Montez. He had an ERA of 3.37, which is really good in the American League. Really, really good, especially with the DH. So it's nice to look at there. When it comes to Frankie Montez's contract, he is making $5.2 million in 2022 and arbitration eligible for 2023. So the Mets will have 2 years control of Frankie Montez. And when it comes to Matt Chapman, he was excellent. He had an average of, wasn't great, obviously 210. But again, we worry about his hip. But he batted 210. But we've seen the earlier years, he was batting 250, 260, 270, but has regressed in average. 27 home runs. He had 72 RBIs. We have to work on that average when it comes to Matt Chapman, but I do believe he can bat 250 with around the same home runs and the same amount of RBIs. But it's very, very good defensively at third base. With his contract, he's making $9.5 million in 2022 and is arbitration eligible for 2023. So the Mets would have 2 years of control with Frankie Montez and Matt Chapman. And when it looks at the total amount of money, that's around $14 to $15 million for Matt Chapman and Frankie Montez. And that would shed the payroll of the Oakland A's because Jeff McNeil is making chump change compared to these two guys. And it would save the Oakland A's around $12 to $13 million and more in 2023 when these Matt Chapman and Frankie Montez will be getting more in their last arbitration eligible year. So that is the other trade for the Mets and the Oakland A's in trade proposal 1. Frankie Montez and Matt Chapman going to the Mets for Jeff McNeil, Ronnie Mauricio, and Robert Dominguez. The next trade proposal 2 that I would put between the Mets and the Oakland A's is this. Matt Chapman and Chris Bassett going to the Mets for Jeff McNeil and Ronnie Mauricio. Now, it's a similar deal, but obviously I'm getting rid of the 10th ranked prospect and Robert Dominguez because Chris Bassett is like around the number 2 or number 3 type of starter. But he is one of the older pitchers of the Oakland A's. And that's what we're going to have to look at here when it comes to Chris Bassett and Matt Chapman, and why I'm only giving one top prospect with Jeff McNeil and Ronnie Mauricio, because Chris Bassett is a little bit more older than the other two that we're going to talk about. And we're going to look at Chris Bassett right here. Now, Chris Bassett is going to be 33 years old in 2022. So he's older than Frankie Montez, and you'll see in Sean Manaya in a little bit, guys. But Chris Bassett is going to be 33 years old, making $8.8 million, and is a free agent after the 2022 season. So you got a 1-year rental with Chris Bassett, along with Matt Chapman, who has 2 more years. The reason why I'm only giving Mauricio and Jeff McNeil is because of the age of Chris Bassett. He pitched well, as we'll see in a little bit, but what you have to look into, guys, is that you can't give up so much, and Billy Beane can't expect so much in a pitcher who is 33 years old making $8.8 million, and you see what Chapman is making is $9.5. That's almost $18 million. It's almost $20 million right there with 2 players. And again, Billy Beane is going to want to shed the payroll with McNeil making nothing and Mauricio making the league minimum if he is up in the major leagues. That is a very fair deal for both teams. Chris Bassett, again, 33 years old. When it comes to his stats, 3.15 ERA, 12-4 record, 159 strikeouts with a 1.06 whip was a very good year. One of the better years of any A's starting pitcher. But again, his age is the issue here. And you're going to sell high on Chris Bassett's year, but his age is a little bit of a detriment when you're looking back at what he can bring back in a package for Chris Bassett and Matt Chapman. Ronnie Mauricio, Jeff McNeil for Chris Bassett and Matt Chapman. I think that's a very fair deal for trade proposal number 2 when it comes to the Mets and the Oakland A's. The last trade that we're going to look at, Met fans, is this one. This one might be the more realistic trade for both the A's and the Mets. And I'll tell you the reason why in a second. When it comes to the trade proposal, the last trade proposal that I have for the Mets and the Oakland A's, trade proposal 3 is this. The Mets would trade Jeff McNeil and Calvin Ziegler, ranked in the Mets prospect number 9 on the list, going to the A's for Matt Chapman and Sean Manaea. This is the one that I'd probably be more a favorite for the Mets fans and the Oakland A's fans for that matter, because it seems more realistic, because Sean Manaea is basically the third pitcher in the A's rotation who has a little under a 4 ERA. We'll look at that in a little bit. But when it comes back to it, Jeff McNeil is in all these trades, guys, because I feel like the Mets are going to trade Jeff McNeil. Jeff McNeil, Calvin Ziegler for Matt Chapman and Sean Manaea. Now, when it comes to Sean Manaea and his stats, and along with his contract, guys, Sean Manaea is making $10.2 million in 2022. 1 year left on that deal. That is a rental right there for the Mets. And again, Billy Beane can get a little bit of an upkeep in prospect. That's why I'm giving Calvin Ziegler. I don't think he deserves a top 5 prospect, because he is getting an everyday starter in Jeff McNeil and Calvin Ziegler, who probably won't be up for a couple of years, but has a big-time arm and a right-handed pitcher. I do think the Mets can trade Ziegler and Jeff McNeil to get Matt Chapman and Sean Manaea. I think this is the most realistic trade scenario that I propose, because I do think this is more realistic when it comes to both teams. When you look at his stats, Sean Manaea's stats in 2021, 11-10, 3.91 ERA, 194 strikeouts with a whip of 1.23. Again, when it comes to a trade involving Billy Beane, you have to look at not just the prospects or the players going back. You have to look at the money. And in every scenario, Billy Beane and the Oakland A's are going to save between $9 and $20 million on either one of these trades. With the Frankie Montez trade, he would save around $9 million. When it comes to the Chris Bassett trade, he would save about $13 to $14 million. And with the Sean Manaea trade, he would save around $20 million in a trade with the Mets. So between $9 and $20 million, the Oakland A's would save payroll-wise and get back prospects and an everyday player. So with any one of these trades with the Oakland A's, Billy Beane would save money on the payroll and get back a prospect or two along with an everyday player. And the Mets would get back either a top starting pitcher or a third in the rotation type of starting pitcher. Yes, they would have to give up a top prospect or two and Jeff McNeil, but you're getting the everyday third baseman in Matt Chapman, who's 28 years old, for at least 2 years, along with 2 years of Frankie Montez, or 1 year of Chris Bassett, or 1 year of Sean Manaea, or 2 years of Luis Castillo. All these trades are possible, big-time trades for the New York Mets. Can the Mets pull that off? I think Epler is on the verge of making a big-time trade when this lockout ends. This revolves around the Mets not signing Chris Bryant. This involves the Mets not signing a guy like Carlos Rodon. If those don't happen in the free agent market, look for the Mets to make a big-time trade to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Get in their third baseman and get in another big arm in this rotation behind DeGrom and Scherzer. That is what I think can truly happen in the trade market for the New York Mets if they don't get Chris Bryant and or Carlos Rodon. What do you think of these trades, Met fans? Once again, guys, if you enjoyed this video, hit on that like button. If you enjoy my content, want to see more, want to get notified when I post my videos and when I go live, you guys know what to do. Hit on that subscribe button, everybody. Met fans, what do you think of these trade proposals? I gave you 4 trade proposals. 1 with the Cincinnati Reds, and 3 with the Oakland A's. Let me know which one you think is fair, which one you think is overreaching a little bit, and if you don't like any of these trades, let me know in the comments, guys. Let me know what you think. Really appreciate all the support, and as always, Mets fans, let's go Mets.